So what originally stood on the Temple Mount before the Muslims took it over in the 7th century AD? Well, if you look at the shape of the Temple Mount, you will see that it exactly resembles other Roman forts that you find in Masada, you find up in Germany, in Britain, and other places. It is formed exactly like the old Roman forts. And you will see that when you look into the book of Josephus, you find that the Temple Mount today was actually the old fort called Antonia, where the Romans occupied the high ground. And of course, all the armies would occupy the high ground when they were occupying a foreign power. So they were occupying the high ground, and Josephus describes Fort Antonia, and he says that it was the size of several cities, and it held the 10th Roman Legion. Now, a Roman legion consists of about 6,000 soldiers, not to mention all its servants and helpers, and it numbered up to about 10,000 people. Now, when you look at the model that they have in Jerusalem, you have the temple, and then you have this little appendage, and they say that that is Fort Antonia, and that little appendage can hold maybe, 600 soldiers? But a Roman legion and all its servants was about 10,000 people. And that 35-acre Temple Mount there can hold 10,000 people. And Josephus says it was the size of several cities. So that was Fort Antonia. And of course, to the south of that, Josephus writes that there were two colonnades from the south part of Fort Antonia, 600 feet with these two colonnades, and then came the temple. So the temple was 600 feet south of Fort Antonia, and of course that is the hill called Ophel. And the temple faced the east. The back of it was the west, and the temple and the Holy of Holies faced the east. And from the Mount of Olives, you could actually look right into the temple. And Fort Antonia had 4 towers on each corner, but the southeast tower was, the other 3 were 50 cubits, but the southeast tower was 70 cubits, a bit higher, so it could look right into the temple. So what we see on the Dome of the Rock is actually the old Fort Antonia. Now, when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, the ancient historians say that the only thing that was left was Fort Antonia. That was the only thing that was standing. And what do we find in Jerusalem? The only ancient monument in Jesus' day. What do we find? The Temple Mount. It was the only thing left from the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, Jesus Christ said in Matthew, the 24th chapter, when he said to his disciples, he says in verse 1 of Matthew 24, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. Jesus said, "See you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." And when you look at Josephus, I mean, the Roman soldiers came in and just destroyed the temple from its very foundations. And what do we find on Ophel? It is barren. Not one stone is left upon another. Many people think that Jesus' prophecy was wrong because we see the retaining walls around the Temple Mount, the Wailing Wall. Many people feel that that was part of Herod's when he expanded the temple, that was part of Herod's temple. But again, that's Fort Antonia, and Jesus was not wrong. And there's also a prophecy in the book of Micah that says that Jerusalem shall be plowed as a field. And that's exactly what happened. And we see not one stone left upon another in the hill called Ophel. Jesus' prophecy rings true, and it was fulfilled by Titus in 70 AD. And of course, that prophecy of Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 27, was talking about Titus destroying the temple, and not one stone was left atop another that was not thrown down, and Jesus' prophecy was accurate.